Well, howdy, and welcome to TWP episode 16. We are trucking along. You may
Let's
notice I'm
go.
not here with Zach, our normal host. He is currently out on a non-disclosed injury. If you want to figure out what that is, look it up in the Columbus News. But today, joining me, I have my childhood friends, Mitch and BK. Guys, say what's up.
How's it going,
Howdy.
everybody? Tom, good to be
All right,
with
one
you.
at a time. One at a time. Let's get to know you. No, I'm just kidding. These are my friends. They're both lifelong Browns fans, and they're ready to kick it with me today, talk some Browns. Yeah, you guys ready to go TWP style?
Let's rock and roll.
Let's
rock
go,
and roll.
brother.
Hell yeah. So first, we're going to talk about the Browns game this past week. Browns beat the Bears 20-17. Bit of an ugly game. Bit of a win at the last moment game. Immediate reactions, guys.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I've been going to a lot of games. I've been going to a lot of games for a long time. This game at 17-7 was over. It was over. There is clearly a new air, and it's very, very present in the stadium. And I think that's a big thing about the win itself is getting the W in the stadium. So just kind of taken aback. I mean, just so impressed by them.
Mitch?
Heck yeah. I loved it as well. Obviously kind of a stressful endeavor, but no, so impressed. Seeing the receiving core flex. I'm struggling internally to decide like who my favorite receiver is. And just altogether falling in love with this Joe Flacco energy that we've seen. So
it's
very
a
exciting.
beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. BK, you're talking about the stadium. I keep hearing that it's like the loudest stadium in the league, or like it's just the loudest it's ever been. It's so cool to hear that. And it's so funny too that Zach and I, the only game we went to was the fourth game against the Ravens. It was 28-3, and it was silent basically the whole game.
It was, that was one that was just over in the sun. The sunburn just showed the misery. Yeah, I will say this. I said it in the game, in the moment. There's old NFL films that talk about the Pandemonium Palace, okay, of the Cleveland Browns, the old municipal stadium. It very much so feels like that. None of us were around for that, but through the stories of those before us, it's loud. The defense can feel it. You can feel them when they're looking at you, when they're getting hyped. So yeah, I think the stadium and the home crowd is feverish. I think that it is bedlam in there week after week. So.
Yeah, I'll say this was a wild win. And yeah, even when we were down, it did start feeling pretty bad. I did think, the window was closing, but the door never closed. Like, I think we all felt like at any moment we could turn this around, and we ultimately did. But this game, I mean, I think it's all about like opportunities capitalized on and opportunities missed. Like the Bears, they look like a Browns team of old where we put the ball in the plate for them many times and they just like didn't take care of it.
Absolutely. I mean, the writing is in the score, and I guess the stat box by half. It's just the degree of difficulty we had. I guess asserting like the dominance. Asserting ourselves. They had missed opportunities as well, and it did seem like it was a matter of time before maybe the Browns capitalized on it, which they did. Defensively and offensively, right?
Yeah. No, the defense kept giving us opportunities. And, I just want to run through some of those Bears missed opportunities. They had a Hail Mary in the first quarter, just completely dropped by the tight end, Robert Tonyan. I mean, beautiful ball from Fields. Also, Fields played a tough game. He had some unfortunate things happen. So that Hail Mary drop, there was them not scoring at half when they probably should have gotten a field goal. They went for a Hail Mary, no hit on Justin Fields' call, which probably should have been called. We've got the run on fourth down when it looked like Justin Fields was going to bootleg and get an easy first down, and he got a shoelace tackle from Cam Mitchell, the rookie, so good on him. And finally, the last play of the game, the Hail Mary. I think everybody's heart skipped a beat it bobbled by a few players, landed into the basket of Darnell Mooney, and he just he was falling backward, and he just let go of it. And D'Anthony Bell, quick shout out to D'Anthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman. D'Anthony Bell last year, undrafted rookie. Ronnie Hickman this year, undrafted rookie. 2 safeties that have played big minutes for this team as injuries continue to pile up. And D'Anthony Bell ultimately gets the interception. What a sequence of events to end the game. Holy crap.
I know.
So wild.
Yeah. And I bet from your guys' standpoint, I'm not sure what I did see it later, but viewing it from the TV, the way that the ball came into the end zone on that last Hail Mary play, it almost looked like Mooney was startled that the ball got to him, and that his reaction, just like when you're playing a pickup game, he kicked his foot up to try and keep the ball alive, and so D'Anthony Bell, the safeties that had to play, he ultimately made that play in that moment. But I think too, just to kind of sing it, because we might as well sing it while we're dancing here at 9-5. Something that maybe doesn't go the way it did this past Sunday in previous years. Would you guys say that? Just the feel,
Oh my gosh,
the way that something could slip away.
Absolutely. I think you got to attribute Joe Flacco to the cool, calm, collected nature of us coming back. But I think it's very 2023 Browns that we felt like our defense was going to keep us in it and going to continue to give us opportunities. And we squandered a few opportunities ourselves throughout this game as well. We got the muffed punt recovery at the 25 or the 30. And immediately after, Joe Flacco threw a pick, which was kind of all right, you get 3, Joe.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah, it's kind of astonishing, the degree to which I was not bothered by the interceptions. There's something that comes along with the readiness, and like you're saying, the cool composure of Joe, and you see him. None of it looked panicked, yet the throws appeared risky, especially for Browns fans. I feel like, me personally, I can't remember the last time I saw somebody try and throw into such a narrow window and pull it off. But despite the interceptions, despite the pacing of the game, to draw back to just how strange and unique it was, I can't remember the last time I felt that I rode that roller coaster on a Browns game. That it was definitely a different energy from us. Yeah.
Cardiac kids, baby. I just want to touch more on Joe Flacco. He's kind of unlocking a few players that catch balls for this team. Amari and David Njoku both had 100-yard games, and I want to go deeper on David in particular, but Tillman had 4 catches for 50 yards. Goodwin caught a deep ball that's going to scare teams moving forward. That one catch alone is going to change our offense entirely. And then Elijah Moore didn't have a big game, but he's still an active threat in this offense. Love what Joe Flacco has brought to those guys and these pass catchers. But I'd like to talk about David Njoku a little bit more. Apparently, he was asked to speak the night before, and Kevin Stefanski, put him on a platform and said, "This is exactly what we want the Browns to look like moving forward. This is the perfect example of a Brown." And talk about the year he's had. Absolute career year. He's earned every penny we've paid him, and that's the first time we can say that. And he's catching fire with Joe Flacco. 100 yards, 10 catches, a touchdown, and a toe drag swag touchdown at that. I think David Njoku, he can truly be the focal point of this offense, and we can build out around him. I love Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper is the most consistent wide receiver in the game, but David Njoku is so versatile. For whatever reason, we've been only trying to throw him screens for 5 years, and it's hey, he also can just catch a quick curl and turn that into 7 yards 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
Who stuck out to you guys? If you want to talk about David Moore, I get it. I want to keep talking about him. But if there's anybody else that you'd like to bring up, shoot for it.
Yeah, I'll just concur with you. I think Njoku is not just come alive. I think we saw some of his ability to help Jacoby last year. I think it's evident that he's been growing, but there's kind of been the unknown factor. When's he going to break through? But I guess if we just had to say on the nature of highlighting one of the wide receivers, the play that Cooper made coming across the field, clearly he's the one, and Njoku's the number one tight end that we got. So two different position, sets. It was a moment when you needed Cooper to do what he did. And I feel like I know I either internally vocalized it, or said it out loud. I go, Cooper's been a little quiet this half. Watch him here on a slant or something to that. And that's exactly what happened. A long dig route all the way across the field, dragging, waiting for that window. So Njoku gets the nod. Cooper gets the nod too. That's the 1-2 right there.
Absolutely.
Dude, for me, I feel like Tillman, dude, it was just so exciting. Because, yeah, I don't know. I feel like with Amari, there's always, every time he makes one of those big catches, and he's made some crazy plays. I mean, yeah, he broke 100 yards that pass game, but it didn't stand out as much to me as when Tillman snuck in there. And it's like, yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do, because like you're saying, Amari's going to be, the target, absolutely, the expected weapon on a receiving core. But yeah, I don't know. I was just really really excited to see Tillman's performance.
Tillman's got strong hands. He's got great physicality, and like Joe Flacco, as we've said, likes to sneak it into tight windows. And
another guy to get over.
Who do you want? A guy with great hands to catch the ball in tight windows? It's like that. Tillman's going to be a first down threat all the time, and I think he could be a red zone threat. We've not really tapped into that, but more to see from this offense. Huge win from the Browns. Being at 9-5, we're at like 90% chance to make the playoffs, and I think that's very possible. And what's been consistent the whole time has been our defense. And I want to talk a bit about one guy in particular. You might not be surprised. I want to talk about Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, for the second game in a row, kind of got no calls. And you can see 3 of the photos on the screen are him being absolutely violated and not getting a call. Now, after the Jacksonville game, in a presser, he said, "This is bogus. This is ridiculous." He had like scratches on his face from Jacksonville, and similar to this game, he got no calls. So after Myles got this $25,000 fine from criticizing the refs, you would assume that the refs are at least aware of this problem. Maybe they'll take a look at it. But it seems to be one of those issues where it happens every single play. So when do you call it? Do you call it every play? You can't call it every play. There's a window. This game has to end at some point. But Myles finishes another game where he still absolutely affected the outcome, but no holding calls. I mean, how does that happen? Is this the refs saying F you to Myles, or is this just something that they can't call every play and it's hard to stay on top of it? I don't know. What do you guys think? BK, where are you?
I will say this. It's in my thought that when the refs are calling a game actively, whether it be football, umpires, or in the basketball referees, I do believe that their job is just absolutely, it's got to be very difficult to make the right calls all the time. So on the basis of, have they been lacking, and do they need to focus up and actually take this seriously? And especially on critical downs, you're talking about third down, you're talking about when that they're going to be in quarterback protect on 3rd and long, they're not going to be running the ball there. They need to focus more. Is it deliberate? I don't believe so. I don't think that it can be deliberate in that way. I think that there's too many variables to control to say that there's not some vendetta there's a vendetta against Myles Garrett.
They're trying to take away his Defensive Player of the Year candidacy, Brandon.
Trying to give it back to TJ Watt. My God.
They're trying to give it back to TJ Watt. And we all know why. What's the difference between those two? Mitch, were you going to say something?
Well, no, I mean, I'm normally the conspiracy theorist, but
oh, jeez.
I think, okay, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Because, yeah, you have that dichotomy of like, what are you going to call it every time? Or are you going to just not call it at all? And it's like, I just think it's stupid that, yeah, there has to obviously be that middle ground where we get, and it invites a very subjective, problematic situation where it's like, well, we give you 4 calls and then we choose which moments to give. That sounds really unfair and not in the spirit of being fair. But at the same time, it's like, I'll take that over either of the two extremes where it's like, dude, even if it's not, the worst holding call, it would just be great to see something as a response to this. And
yeah,
I think it's ridiculous that to draw back to the whole fine thing. I think that's honestly kind of ridiculous in and of itself. I'm not really as hip with precedents when it comes to
you're not allowed to talk about the refs, basically, or you get fined.
Right.
That's just kind of the rules.
I will say, understanding that, he was very respectful, and I just wanted to add the side note that I love that Kevin backed him up. He's like, yeah, we're all for, something to the effect of like, we're all for free speech, but also kind of caveated, but it seems like there's a lot of support, and I personally have nothing but respect for Miles for being the voice, even if he gets in trouble for it, for a problem that definitely plagues not only him. You'd have to imagine, dude.
I mean, he has the highest win rate of any rusher in the league. He gets double teamed more than any person in the league. And he goes 2 games with no sacks or no pressures or whatever, and no holding calls. It's just egregious. I think it's blatant, and I think it's absurd that he's gone 2 games now with no holding calls. But we've got another big matchup lined up. This week we play the Texans. And this is as hot of a game as any of them we've played this year. We're 9-5 and they're 8-6. And there's a lot of big storylines around this one. And a lot of not big storylines, but there's just a lot of ways where these teams are interwoven. They're connected. But I think number one is if CJ Stroud plays, this is basically a playoff game. If he doesn't play, I think we should win pretty easily or convincingly, but they're still a tough, scrappy team. So having said all that, BK, what are your key matchups? What are you looking out for against a team like Houston? What do you think will ultimately be some of the deciding factors?
I think it's all about I think it all starts with defense. It's the only thing that we can look to say what has been consistent, and it's been the defense. If CJ Stroud is playing, he doesn't have one of his top guys, and when you're kind of building a young core, that is just so necessary to have your comfort piece. We saw Baker with Hollywood Higgins, and that's just something that we can point to, but there are comfort players. So defensively, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have a great game plan for CJ Stroud, and hit with him, say he's fully healthy, fully cleared, because it doesn't, at least to me, I don't think that is the part of the game that I'd be the most concerned about, is their offense, against our defense. I would say it's more so, what is our offense going to do differently this week against a better Houston defense than the Bears defense? It's clear in the records. It's clear in their personnel. They got a lot of those young draft picks that they have on that defensive line. So, so for me, the question is, the most important factor is the defense. But the biggest, I guess, put on the binoculars for is, are we going to be able to get a little bit of run game going, or are we just going to have 45 passes a game from Flacco, and that's just going to be the new standard? I don't know about that one.
Dang. Yeah, that's a big question. I definitely would like to see a little bit more use of the run game. If that's not the case, I guess I wouldn't be heartbroken. But yeah, I think for me, as of this morning, it seemed like, there was no way CJ, he was still not cleared. You don't want to screw around with a head injury. There's definitely from a medical standpoint, there's a lot of mind to not start him. Even if you could, there's a mind to kind of be conservative with that. And so assuming that, I'm really excited to see this Browns defense take a stab at Case Keenum. Our old boy. It's going to get ugly, dude. If Miles and JOK get a stab at Case, I think that this defense is going to drive the game. I think it might be actually way more brutal than we expect. And even if we only put up 14, Joe Flacco throws 2 interceptions, and we run the ball for 50 yards, I think we still win 14-3 or something. But I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I think D'Amico Ryans is a very good coach. He, along with Kevin, is in running for Coach of the Year. I mean, nobody saw this turnaround happening. They're tied right now with the Jags for the AFC South lead. So they're playing for their division. This means everything. And I think if CJ Stroud can go, he will. And I think similar to our game against the Jags, we should have, I mean, too many things are lining up. This is very similar to that game. They're missing their number one wide receiver, young, talented quarterback who's good, but a little bit hobbled, against a defense that will try to exploit him. And we'll have a game plan centered around, we know who you're going to try to throw to because you don't have as many options. And their offensive line is not very good. The one key difference between this game and the Jags game is that it is in Houston. We are 7-1 at home, and we are 2-4 on the road. We're certifiably bad on the road. So hopefully we can change that tune this week. I mean, we haven't even mentioned that we took their quarterback. We took Deshaun for what he's worth, and they were able to find an absolute gem in Ohio State star, CJ Stroud, who's not only easily the offensive rookie of the year, he's still in contention for the MVP of the season. So it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do and what the head coach has been able to do over there. And they've got a lot of young talent, but I think that's coaching wins this game. I think Kevin Stefanski having a smart game plan and letting Joe Flacco slowly open up, that's how we get success. If we get the running game going for once, that'd be great. And the defense needs to be buckled up, and they need to, if CJ Stroud plays, we need to get some picks, or we need to have some fumbles or whatever. This can't be just we scored more than them. We have to win the turnover battle as well, which I don't think we won it last week. Maybe we don't have to win the turnover battle with Joe Flacco. As long as he throws for 200 yards in the fourth, I guess we can turn the ball over.
Exactly.
But I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, even if we don't win, the crazy thing is that if we lose this game, we could face this team first round of the playoffs. We could have a rematch in a couple of weeks of this exact same game. So here, I just wanted to, if anybody had any strong predictions for who the number one seed will be, who the division winners will be, or who the final seven that actually makes it in will be. Let's just rifle them off. BK, you got any strong opinions off rip?
Sure. I think going down 1 through 7, I'm just going to stick with Baltimore up there. I think that they have the one game edge as you get close to the end of the season. I don't know if that spot is going to be as relevant to us as some of the lower seeding. But let's just run it from how it looks now, because that seems the most reasonable. Baltimore stays 1, Miami 2. Kansas City has a very critical game for us. This is just a quick aside to the rest of the season. They play the Bengals. I'm not sure what week it is. I think it's week 17. So they play them not this upcoming week, but the next week. That's going to be a big Kansas City route for us, because the Bengals can stay behind us, but we don't want to get to the last game of the season, I guess, depending on how you look at it, at 10-7, with that kind of matchup. Anyway, I really do think that Kansas City will win a couple of games come down the stretch. They'll stay there. And then it's tough. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they won 2 of their games already against the Houston Texans. I don't know how Houston could hurdle them unless Jacksonville truly falters here, in their continued slide. So I'll say Jacksonville stays pat. And then when it comes to the wild card, it's kind of getting a little bit scary from 2 teams. I would say Buffalo and the Bengals are my 2 biggest, concerns, at least for the position of the Browns. I'll just say being the 5 versus being the 7, I think means a lot less to Browns fans than one might want to admit. I think that getting an AFC South team, like you said, Tom, the Texans or the Jaguars, is more of an ideal matchup. But if you said we had to go to KC or we had to go to Miami, at least personnel-wise and how we stack up, I don't know. I think that seeding is not exactly the most important thing. When you have Buffalo playing the way that they're playing, I'm thinking that they're going to eventually get to at least 10 or 11 wins. That's possible if they win out with their schedule remaining. The Bengals have a very critical game, and the Colts don't have the toughest schedule either. So when we're looking at the wild card, I will say it's going to be us, Buffalo, and the Indianapolis Colts as the qualifying teams, and the Houston and the Steelers and the Bengals will miss out, with the Bengals being kind of jaded by their the 10-7 record there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, and I also I don't think the Bengals are gonna win 2 more games. I think they'll only win 1 more game.
Okay.
I think they're gonna lose to the Chiefs. I think they're gonna lose to us. But I agree with pretty much everything else you said. I am so excited that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to make the playoffs. And not only are they not going to make the playoffs, there's a good chance they'll have a losing record.
Oof.
First time in the Tomlin era. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful sight.
And at his first losing season, they're gonna fire him. Like, people in Pittsburgh want his head on a pike.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is justice. It's just karmic justice. And I have negative sympathy at this point for the entire fan base, dude.
What a beautiful year. I also, man, I would love it if the Bengals and the Steelers were outside looking in. Just such a beautiful thing. But that's enough Browns talk for today. Let's move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The Cavs.
Yeah, from the NBA. So the Cavs here are now at 15-12, which is solid. I think they're 6th overall in the East, which is not bad. But as the Browns had a great week or a great 2 weeks, the Cavs have hit a new low, which we did not see coming. And that is 2 of the 4 pillars of our team have gone down. You can see on this play here, Darius Garland got absolutely rocked by Porzingis. No call, by the way, which last couple of games before he got injured, spoiler, he's been taking so many shots and just not getting that many calls. I don't know if it's because he's small. They just expect him to take big shots or something. But, I mean, he broke his jaw. Like
elbows to the mouth?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really not a great explanation for what happened, but he got absolutely rocked. He broke his jaw, and now he's having surgery for the next, he's not having surgery for 6 weeks, but he's having surgery, and then he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Evan Mobley, knee surgery. You can't have a 7-footer have a knee surgery and call it minor. I don't know if they're deeming this a minor injury, but they said he'll be back in 6 to 8 weeks, but he's 7 feet tall. And he runs, several miles a game over the course of one NBA game. So I really hope that those two can get back and get better soon. But it means that a lot of our young players, we're the Summer League champions. We're undefeated. Our G League team is known and feared among the G League. So we got some two-way players who are going to get a lot of minutes. We have a few older veterans who are going to play a little bit more than we had initially anticipated. So we'll go quickly around the horn. BK, who are you looking forward to seeing step up in this time while we're missing 2 of our stars?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at these role players here, guys, I look at Karis LeVert. I think that what he's got to do to lead the second team, it's not just a critical role. It's a veteran role that we need to be leading that. And when it comes to the kind of play he has, he's tough. He's clearly been able to be serviceable at times when it comes to his actual production. But just his ability to lead in the second unit, you got to look at Karis LeVert not just for time and for points, but I think without Garland, you're going to need a secondary guy to kind of facilitate a little bit more. How about you guys?
Nice, Mitch.
I'm loving Strus right now. Love the energy, especially last night. But yeah, just excited. Is with him and Merrill. They both have some critical roles to provide, just in terms of being solid shooters. So I'm just excited to see, especially Strus. He's got a little bit more experience. So, yeah, hoping that he's gonna inspire the young Bucks to get going here.
Yeah, absolutely. We could use that. And I'm going to go ahead and say Craig Porter Jr. I love the Craig Porter Jr. story. It's my favorite like narrative of the Cavs this season. Undrafted rookie kind of leapfrogs a few other guys that you didn't see coming. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Ty Jerome, who started the season as our backup point guard because he got a little knick-knack injury, and then Craig Porter said, "I'll show you something." I mean, he's a stat sheet stuffer. He's a poor man's young Russell Westbrook. He can do everything. He plays hard defense. He goes and gets blocks. He gets rebounds. And if he can show that, like, he can get this team up tempo and he can get other guys involved, I mean, he's invaluable. So, I mean, we're really going to miss these guys for the next 6 to 8 weeks. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity in an East where it's very top heavy. Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly are all playing ridiculous basketball right now. There's no reason why we can't hang around in the time that our guys are out.
Yeah, I do think that we can. And when you look at our positioning from where we were last year at this time, you see a team that's not where they were last year. They would say that they're not impressing. It doesn't mean they're still in the 6th seed as of today at 15-12. So, yeah, when you talk about who's to pick up the slack to play against the rest of the East and of course, the other teams we have, Donovan Mitchell has to he's got two choices, 2 roads to take here. And, he can ascend and lead the team, or we're going to be in the 500 ball club, and we're going to be really, waiting for those other stars to come back. Because what do you do in a time when your stars are down? It's time for someone to ascend. We actually have a guy that can do that, a guy that can actually take over a game. He can have the major point, output. And so I guess, looking at you guys here, do you guys think that Donovan Mitchell, not is he capable of that, but is that something that we should just expect of him to take care of this team?
I mean, I'd love to say yes, but with the shattered, broken heart of a Clevelander, I don't know. I don't know if I have that expectation for him. I guess I'd put it more as like I'd be thrilled. Like, I do feel like it's worth considering the reality where he rallies behind this team and he wants to create an identity here and build a legacy here. I think it'd be great. I think it's totally possible. But yeah, I'm not too attached to it. I could totally see the reality and would understand the reality. Just based on the nature of his deal right now, that he might not be here forever.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely his opportunity to take the reins. And I think he will. I think the team that is left is built very similar to his teams in Utah. He doesn't have as much of a veteran presence, but if he uses Jared Allen like he used Rudy Gobert, and these other role players kind of stick to what their roles are and really, really play those roles to the highest degree, he can lead this team to a 4 seed, 5 seed, 6 seed. I think that's possible.
Yeah.
But we have to see Donovan Mitchell step up. And that's something that, we haven't quite seen in Cleveland yet. As these injuries have happened, a lot of people have been calling for Donovan Mitchell to be traded right now, which, it's not something we've shied away from on this podcast. And not something that I absolutely hate considering, but it's just very complicated right now. A lot of not a lot of people. Some people have said, like, with all these injuries, we should just tank. We should just give up on the season, basically, and look at trading Donovan Mitchell as kind of like a tanking move. And some people look at trading him as a shape back up, be like a middle of the road team, and when Darius and Mobley get back, have these pieces that are built for those guys. So I think the real question is, if we traded him next summer or the following summer, would we be able to get the same amount of return that we would get if we traded him right now? Because I'm convinced that right now there are teams that are either having a fast or slow start. It honestly doesn't really matter. If they just think that they're a Donovan Mitchell away from being a competitor, there's a lot of teams that would give up a lot of stuff. Yeah.
I think it's
BK.
definitely. I think it's definitely a possibility, based off of the fact that there's some other teams that maybe could have create a package or create some kind of deal that would look different than it might look next summer. But I guess to your question, I'll shoot you with a question. What's the rush? Is my big narrative when it comes to this. Um, I don't see a lost season, even when you look at last year's exit to the Knicks. It's what is the achievement? What is our goal? I think that is fair and reasonable to say the goal of this season is to make the playoffs, and what comes after that will be either progress moving forward from what we did last year, or maybe not. The writing might be that we get bounced again in that first round. The headline of what the team should be gunning for. When it comes to, should we make a move now because of assets? I think that is a secondary question to, well, let's see what a 6 seed looks like for the Cavs. If we have to play in and we have to get through a team, so I think that battle testing is progress. That is pushing the ship forward.
Yeah. I think the question on what's the rush ultimately comes down to like him not establishing chemistry with other players on the team, in particular Garland and Mobley, who we see as, we've already paid Garland. He's the highest paid Cavalier of all time. And Mobley is looking to make an even bigger deal when it comes time to re-signing him. It's complicated. I think I would say, like, to follow up your question to my question with a question, do you think that Garland and or Mobley are being stunted right now by playing with Donovan Mitchell? Because I've felt that way. And maybe I'm in denial about Garland and Mobley not being as good as they are. And that's just something I need to be honest with myself about. But also, Donovan Mitchell's an easy excuse. The way he plays doesn't lend itself to developing other players, especially other stars. He plays great with a ton of role players, as we've seen in Utah, but he wants to be the guy at the end of the day. Both Garland and Mobley have had flashes where you're like, oh, that's our best player. So it's really complicated. And like I said, I think other teams are just desperate right now. Or more desperate, more willing, more cooperative. We have more leverage right now than we ever will have. Donovan's younger. His ceiling is still very high. Sure. It's a sticky situation, but like, what do I want to see as a Clevelander, like as an Ohioan, as a basketball fan? Yeah, I want to see the young guys step up, and I want to see Donovan say, yeah, I like this city. I mean, is this so weird to say, but Joe Flacco had a great game this week, and Donovan Mitchell tweeted, this Joe Flacco guy's crazy. Like, I'm like, oh, he's watching the Browns games. Like, he's nice. I'm looking for any degree of him being invested in this city, because in the summertime he wears Mets jerseys and he hangs out in Central Park. Like, he loves New York, but he's from New York, so I get that. I mean, it's such a make or break time for him. So yeah, I guess it's nice that there is a trade deadline in February or March, whenever it is. And right now we have our opportunity to see, do we really want Donovan Mitchell? Do we really want him in all of his glory?
Well, yeah, okay. And Tom, to that point, so who do you think I would counter with? What would what would meet the criteria of
a worthy package?
Value? Yeah. Like, what would you expect baseline, and not be like, okay, this kind of feels wrong or short-sighted?
I'd want some draft picks back just to make up some ground. I would want a role player or two, and I would want a young player who is not a proven star, but like has star potential. It's crazy. It's so funny. I'm willing to share this. the day that the Josh Giddey allegations of him hooking up with a minor, the day that happened, I texted Zach and said, "What about a trade package for Josh Giddey?" And then the news broke, and I was like, "Oh, maybe not Josh Giddey." I mean, I don't know. I'm so constantly like up and down on Donovan because I feel like he is exactly who he is. He has played the exact same way since he's entered the league.
It's like some Kyrie energy. I have like a strange reservation about him as a long-term fitting piece, but genuinely, like, to draw back to what you were saying, BK, like, let's invest in this playoff run. We're on our 11th straight overtime win streak, which is pretty exciting. 2-1 last 3 games. Yeah. It's like, let's be open to a trade deal, I guess, internally, but what's the rush? They're going to keep playing, and if we win the next 2 games, how are we going to feel about this whole question?
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of time still.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything has a price, but we have some time right now to kind of see it through. So we'll see what happens with the Cavs. We got a nice little holiday break coming up, and there's going to be some good basketball played. So hopefully we at least wear cool jerseys during it. Let's finish off on some Ohio State news. So Kyle McCord is no longer bleeding scarlet and gray. Kyle McCord has opted to transfer to Syracuse. And I honestly, like, when he said he was transferring, I was like, oh, it'll be like South Dakota State or like Wyoming. Like, it's going to be some bum college that has no chance of being competitive, let alone like win their conference or something like that. And he goes to Syracuse. Oh, it's exactly what I thought.
Mom, the slides are way better in the kiddie pool. You know what I mean? It's like you're allowed to go in the deep end, and you want to go back.
The slides are way better in the kiddie pool. God, I was not expecting to say that on this pod. But no, that actually makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
BK, you got any McCord jokes you'd like to throw in here?
I'll say this. I watched this McCord guy play a couple of big games this year, and it looked like you were watching, I don't know, one of Peyton Manning's more uncoordinated nephews, running around. He looked like Woody from Toy Story half the time, running around out there. He did not look to me visually like the mold of the Ohio State Buckeye quarterback. So no knock against him not being able to, pull it out versus, against Michigan but the guy did not look like what we've been used to with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, his playing style is supposedly like an accurate game manager, right. And yet every like third or fourth ball was not just a miss, but it was like nowhere in the vicinity. I mean, I've said this a bunch of times, but he went to high school with Marvin Harrison Jr. And talk about 2 guys who played together for 8+ years who have no chemistry. Like, they look like they just met each other every time they played. And that's not Marvin Harrison's fault. Yeah, so Kyle McCord, good on you, pal. Enjoy fighting for the orange, and good riddance, you turd. But so that means for our bowl game against Missouri, we're going to be starting Devin Brown. Now, Devin Brown, big quarterback, 6'4", good runner, considered a dual threat, big arm. I would say he kind of fits the mold of an Ohio State quarterback a bit more than Kyle McCord does. I think, Ryan Day, as somebody who just wants to win games, looked at McCord like, oh, he's more trustworthy or something like that, or maybe he's more consistent, at least in practice, not in the games. But I think Brown's a bit more of a wild card, with a bit more of an X factor. So, I mean, this is a huge audition. It's funny, this feels like a preseason game, but it's a bowl game. It's one of the New Year's 5 or whatever. And Devin Brown has a huge opportunity to maybe assert himself as QB1, and you would need to dethrone him after this game. We'll see. I mean, they used him in a lot of weird like gadget plays this year, quarterback runs and such. But he's got a big arm. I feel like he has the chance to throw a couple of touchdowns, a lot of yards, but also maybe turn the ball over a couple of times. Is there something that he could do in this game that could convince you that he should start next year?
Yeah, I guess Missouri is defense. That's what they are. They will not win the game because they happen to be playing against the Buckeyes. So when you look at what he's going to do, you said preseason game, kind of a showcase moment. Yeah, I want 3 touchdowns in the air, 55 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown. If he's a guy who's been, picked and cultivated in the same likeness as McCord or any other recruit, he should be ready to go. He should be ready to look to Missouri's. They're going to be pinned down offensively. They're not going to be able to do anything. So we're going to have a lot of offensive possessions against a good defense. So, in short, I would look to see him, really, make do with probably good positioning in the game.
Mitch?
Heck yeah. I feel like the fan base is going to have high expectations. Like you say, the barrier to entry for whether or not anyone likes you is going to be like baseline 3 touchdowns. We're going to need a massive bomb. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's a very sensational game. It's a big game, flashing lights and all that. Yeah, I really like that 3 touchdown baseline, and I'll throw in the kicker of an 80+ yarder bomb, at least an attempt that looks good.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think that would be great. I mean, I do think this is a huge opportunity, obviously for him. It's obviously a huge opportunity. It's a bowl game, but it's an opportunity to be the quarterback for next year as well, and kind of cement yourself at least in the lead in that race. And he might need a lead because apparently the rumors are a-buzzing for Ohio State to be a transfer destination for maybe some big name players. Now that could mean anything. That could mean offense, defense. It could mean some highly touted recruits. But some people have winked that it could be a guy you mentioned earlier, a guy connected to somebody you mentioned earlier, BK. Arch Manning. Arch Manning is rumored to be at least making some Ohio State visits. So, if we had old Forehead up here in Columbus, I mean, talk about a freaking signing. Hello,
Archie.
Now,
yeah. I mean, Devin Brown, how do you tame that monster? If Arch Manning comes here, Devin Brown might as well just transfer to Syracuse.
It's a story that writes itself.
When's McCord's job, eh?
Yeah. He'll be a stud over there at Rutgers.
Yeah.
No. Actually, Rutgers was pretty good this year. But no, it's an exciting time for the Buckeyes because they're not in the playoff, and we only have the bowl game and next season to look forward to. Well, gosh, man, we missed Zach, but we had a good old time, huh?
We did.
It was awesome, man.
Yeah, BK,
Thanks
Mitch, thank
us.
you very much for joining me on this episode of TWP.
You're gonna cut the pool thing, right? Like a metaphor for like wanting to go into a small pond.
Yeah, big week for the Browns coming up, and always a big week for the Cavs officially with all these injuries. And we'll see what happens with Ohio State and transfer rumors and stuff. But anyway, thank you for tuning into TWP. Like, share, subscribe, talk some trash. If you want to make fun of us in the comments, we welcome it. Guys, thank you for joining me, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys. Go Brownies.